Hasn't been confirmed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no.
Cool.
I'm sorry, I did not have it. Now I have it.
Okay. Everyone good? Good. The entirety of their terrorism flow is based on flawed scholarship, which assumes heteronormativity is the standard of what is good and eliminates that which is bad. And they say that terrorism outweighs in terms of the critique, but no, their evidence assumes that a terrorist attack would produce a reactionary response, but that is the status quo because of proliferation of media images which securitize those existing terrorist organizations. That's inevitable. The affirmative does nothing to reverse those depictions of terrorism. They just claim to reduce one example of terrorism, but not to offer the depictions are Hellman evidence. Their Hellman evidence requires a series of steps, but they present extinction as a certainty. It requires first that nations react to a terrorist attack as if it was made by a state sponsor. But our area evidence says that we could easily establish a connection between who produced the weapon and not immediately react to the nation, and no ISIS nukes. There's no way to purchase one because forensics make it easy to check, and consequences would be harsh. There's no expertise to create a bomb either. That's Esfiandieri and Coite. Snipe Miller says the impact of a nuclear terror is 1 in 3.5 billion because of a lack of expertise and no access to material. Their framing of this justifies anything to solve a threat. Their affirmative doesn't stop media depictions of terrorism because they can't solve. Their Austin evidence, which they keep talking about how their evidence is qualified, but their Austin evidence is based on Chuck Norris is discussing what ISIS could do, which is absolutely ridiculous. They say that there's just more impact. The ISIS threat is overblown, media exaggeration, and lacks capabilities to attack Mueller 723. The Islamic State captured the imagination of the public as usual. Officials have fallen all over themselves following webcast beheadings. The American public says ISIS presents a major security threat. Outrage is justified fears that it presents a worldwide threat or not. Its numbers are small and does not see the target. The far-off enemy is alienated outside support. The main fears that foreign militants have gone too far to fight with ISIS. There's been scarcely any evidence that ISIS could continue to be an inspiration, even if it's weakened or destroy the actual danger. It's distorted television and alarmist statements by politicians. They say that yes, nukes, but first no qualities. That's their Austin evidence. They say terror studies bad, but they universalize what critical terror studies are, and their evidence doesn't provide any warrants. We are not exactly like, we're not just critical terror studies which reject the existence of a threat. We interrogate the production of those terrorist threats. Our core evidence says that the terrorist monster fag has been the terrorists have been intrinsically linked to the sexual other because of the assumption that the terrorist must be a monster in the same way that a sexual predator is a monster, and therefore their understanding of terrorists is necessarily heteronormative. They say that we are academic censorship, but we are not a language, which their evidence assumes. We must interrogate what terrorist means. We don't simply say you can't say terrorist. They say their authors are qualified and would lose their jobs, but Reventhal assumes that intelligence is the intelligence we produce about terrorists is objective. The intelligence which their author cites is produced through a heteronormative lens, which assumes that those people who we are collecting intelligence about are already terrorists. They say that framing of counterterrorism of heteronormativity is wrong, but their Dwan evidence assumes a feminism critique, and they say we don't redefine terrorism as bad, but we're not a redefinition of terrorism. Go to the K. First, the problems don't solve. You can group them. 1, it just has the content and framework of heteronormativity, leads dominant structures on challenges, 1 and 6. Simply adding materials together does not challenge our pedagogy, conceptual framework, in meaningful ways. The approach of inclusivity tends to leave dominant because it is cultural assumptions and their relationships to power unexamined. It is possible to include new discourses, and yes, how much is lead to the tensions that exist around the proximity and competing claims for territorial definition. 2, still links to the queer methodologies. Must reject normative commitments, saying in Elliot 9, what is distinct about queer's counter-normativity's opposition to dominant oppositional heterodox stance? Queer can be identified only negatively because of the law and the rule of law tend to give expression of those values and norms. How law could ever be queer? Something of a mystery. Even the law could be queer leaders. This results in queer singing the banality of normalcy. This makes the very idea of queer normative jurisprudence an oxymoron. Queer identity should not articulate political, moral, and ethical commitments. This commitment to counter-normativities have all their firms lead to severance because they have to defend the rhetoric of the creation of a crisis in the 1AC. The perm severance is a voter because one is unpredictable and infinitely regressive, or shifting efficacies make them a moving target. 2, strategy and time skew. This if spike out with all of our office debating legitimacy of the perm trades off with other arguments. And 3, air day got 3. The structural slide bias acts the personalized piece. It makes the framework and for the debate as infinite prep and literature that advocating change is more explicit and prominent when compared to defense of the status quo, and it has to be a voter, otherwise it makes a zero-risk option for the affirmative, which leads to the perm prolib and destroys quality debates and time frame. Perms are bad and justify conditionality because they can simply spike out of all of our offense by saying the affirmative simply happens after the critique. It's necessary to interrogate what happens when the plan happens immediately, and you should reject their fourth perm because through the lens of the app, because it is intrinsic and it allows them to spike out all of our links in the same way that severance does. And universal consciousness is added to the perm. The perm attempts to incorporate the critique into a socially constructed heteronormative universal consciousness in the form of so-called American values and U.S. energy policy that meets. We descriptively defend that ontological violence is bad, but we refuse prescriptive claims which use instances of violence as convenient justifications for intervention and exploitation, and there's uniformity to disadd our Scott. Evidence from framing the inclusion of the state brings demands of uniformity, shortcutting all solvency. That's the state's demand for identity categories can never be compatible with or confusing of these categories. Scott says that to categorize things, the state must force them into line. The law demands specific recorded facts which place bodies and then to blur lines and under a cookie cutter to be disciplined or destroyed. There's an example, gay marriage has been made into a neat category into which queer bodies are placed, forcing others such as trans people into the realm of the real. You can go to their wanting to see evidence for a reason why they can't get the perm there. Opposing evidence says that the omnipresent U.S. makes it too easy for others to blame the United States, and that a key challenge for the West would be conducting aggressive counterterrorism while not exacerbating anti-Western global agendas. Intelligence cooperation is necessary. The U.S. can supplement local efforts with its own advanced technology. They only use the intelligence produced through this new form of cooperation through the current lens of creating a crisis. The intelligence that we collect will always assume that those are terrorists and that we must eliminate them. They say that the perm can't solve if it doesn't resolve the residual links, but all of our arguments about how they come from a starting point of securitization means that only the starting point of the affirmative can resolve those links, and that the permutation, when it includes those normative commitments, cannot solve.
Okay, we have, what, 4:50?